Oh yeah. Has anybody figured out how the Seattle Seahawks were able to, with a defensive minded head coach, has anybody else figured out how they were able to take a defensive minded head coach and have the nucleus of Sam Darnold, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, and Jackson Smith and Jigba? With all due respect to those guys, nobody is looking at those specific skill players as the top two in any of their respective positions. Maybe not even top three. Because I think a wide receiver, you can go Jettas, you can go Puka, and you can go Jamar Chase, and maybe another guy or two before you get to JSN. JSN's probably that fourth right now, top paid, but he's probably fourth wide receiver in the league, skill wise. But you guys get my point here. Like, has anybody figured out how they were able to do that with a defensive minded head coach? I think I can tell you why. I think I can lend you a little bit of advice and drop some knowledge and some game as to why that happened. Why were the Seattle Seahawks first in points per play last year? Why were the Seattle Seahawks third in scoring last year? Again, with a defensive minded head coach. Well, Sutton is obviously because of Clint Kubiak and what he was able to do with that offense. He's an offensive genius. Did you forget Clint Kubiak, right? Sure. And you got to give credit and kudos to Clint Kubiak for what he was able to do with that offense. However, and I promise you I'm making a point here, so please walk with me. If you listen to a recent interview of Clint Kubiak, he says it all. He says that he was terrified to provide his offensive game plan for the week to head coach Mike Macdonald. Why? Because Clint Kubiak would come up with the offense's game plan for the week. He'd take it to head coach Mike Mack. He'd say, "Hey, coach, got the game plan ready for the offense." Mike Mack would be like, "Okay, let me take a look. Let me take a look at that. This is your offensive game plan? Okay, very cool. Here's 3 to 5 ways I would shut all of this down." Then hand it back to him. Go back to the drawing board, and you iron out all those kinks. I can imagine it would be like when you hand in your test at school, your quiz, remember back when you were in grade school, and you would get it back from your teacher, and she would mark it up with a whole bunch of red pen and where you got stuff wrong. I could imagine it would be something like that. That type of constructive criticism, that type of, "Hey, look, man, I get what you're going for here, but here's how I would stop it. As one of the best defensive minds in the sport right now, as a coach, here's how I would shut this down." Clint Kubiak said, "Oh, okay. Let me go back, iron out those kinks. We'll bring him back. Now, game day, you got Sam Darnold looking like Tom Brady. You got JSN looking like Randy Moss. You got Kenneth Walker winning Super Bowl MVP." So, what am I saying here? I think you're going to get the same thing with Jesse Minter in Baltimore. Or maybe not the same thing, but a similar thing. As we know, Jesse Minter has said this himself. He said it last week. Him and Mike Macdonald, kind of on the same wavelength. They talk a lot. So I think what we're going to see this year, especially with all the things we've been hearing from Jesse Minter so far, like how he wants to be hands-on with the offense. He believes in Bateman, like we mentioned earlier. You know what I'm saying? Lamar's his number one priority. They want to go for it on fourth downs instead of just blindly trusting the defense because that's his side of the ball. I think he's going to be super hands-on with this offense, especially considering you have a 29-year-old Declan Doyle. And this is why I think it's a match made in heaven right here. You've got 29-year-old whiz kid, and I'm not calling him a kid. This is actually what Rick Minter, Jesse Minter's dad, called him. You got a 29-year-old whiz kid at offensive coordinator who's got all these ideas. He's a tape grinder. You know what I'm saying? He's an innovator himself. And you saw what, the tandem of him and Ben Johnson were able to do with Chicago and Caleb Williams in Caleb's second year last year. So he's got all these ideas, and you give him a Lambo like Lamar. And you give him the keys to that Lambo. And you got Joe Brady sitting next to him, kind of guiding him, directing him. But Jesse Minter is going to be right there providing that same sort of constructive criticism that Mike Macdonald provided for Clint Kubiak last year. Oh, this is your game plan for the week, Declan? Here's 3 ways I would stop that. Now let's go back to the drawing board and adjust. And let's let iron sharpen iron like that. Think about to last year. Who was going to check Todd Monken? Todd Monken come with an offensive game plan, go to Harbaugh. Hey, Harbs, look, offensive game plan's done. Harbs like, I'm a special teams guy. I'm a special teams guy. Zach Orr's a literal infant in terms of like coaching, right? Where were the checks and balances, man? And so my overall point is this, guys. I think that young, defensive-minded head coaches are going to take over the National Football League in short order. We saw it last year with Mike Macdonald, who in his second year as head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, in his second year, a defensive-minded head coach was able to make Sam Darnold look damn near like an MVP. Was able to get Jackson Smith and Jigba enough for Offensive Player of the Year. And again, shout out to these individual players. They did their thing respectively. Not saying they didn't. But I think, again, a lot of that has to do with a young defensive-minded head coach who knows how to challenge his offense so that they're ready for game day against anything. They're prepared for anything. That's what it looks like. That's what I think is going to take over this league. Now, here's the one caveat. It's not just defensive-minded head coaches. The reason why I'm throwing young, I'm throwing that adjective in there, because younger guys tend to be less conservative and more innovative. What do I mean by that? In other words, if you get an older defensive coordinator in the building, he might just completely, or not defensive coordinator, if you get an older head coach in the building and he's defensive minded, he might just completely defer and delegate the roles and responsibilities of the offense to the offensive coordinator. Because, he's been around for a long time. Defense is what he knows, is what he does, is his passion. Can't move him off it. Just like a lot of older people. You get set in your ways. But I think that a lot of these guys now, these younger guys, they're young enough to not be so set in one specific way. I think he's going to want to be hands-on with Lamar in the offense. And he's going to be in the war room breaking things down with Declan Doyle actively. That's what excites me. And that's what makes me think that as long as they get the O-line straight, which like I talked about before, I think that they have plenty of avenues to get that done. Whether it be draft, there's still some guys in free agency. They can still shore up those trenches on the interior in a couple of different ways. As long as they do that, and there's buy-in from everybody on this team, of course, I think that this offense, just talking about the offense specifically, they will go nuts. You're going to see this Ravens offense get back to prime form. I'm talking mid-2019 season where nobody had an answer for Lamar in the offense, the Ravens offense. I'm talking 2024 season where nobody had an answer for Lamar in the offense. It's always when the Ravens hit you with a new punch. 2019, first year Lamar is a starter. This is a brand new punch. We got a whole offseason to develop, build off of the things he did in 2018, where he finished the last, 6 or 7 games. 2019 was his best year. Second best year, 2024. First year with Todd Monken. Throw a little bit of a different punch at you. Now, first year with Jesse Minter and Declan Doyle and a whole new coaching staff. It's going to be a completely different array of moves. Who's defending that? Who's defending that? I feel sorry for the Ravens' first 4 to 6 opponents. And yes, I may be sounding a little bit optimistic tonight, but what Jesse Minter said today has me fired up, guys.